The weather's been pretty wild here in the backwoods of Nova Scotia, and it has rained just about non-stop since the last video I made just last week, where we made a little progress on the observatory and finished the deck. But we finally have a clear day, and according to the meteorologist, just this one day. So I was up at the crack of dawn and went into the village to get the timbers for the next stage. Today, we're going to begin building the walls of the observatory. Oh, and I got a few more deck blocks too. Most of the weight of the walls is going to sit on the joists that are just inside the outer edge of the deck, and I wanted to give them a little bit more reinforcement. Now, each of those two joists will have 3 deck blocks underneath them, and should be able to hold tons of weight. Now, there's not going to be nearly that much weight on those deck blocks. I think the entire observatory is very likely to end up weighing less than half a ton. But, as I said in a previous episode, I like to overbuild. I figure the deck at this point weighs about 500 pounds, so I got my wife Daphne out here and just lifted up one side of the deck so she could place shims on the deck blocks. And then I got the new deck blocks into place, leveled them, and lowered the deck back down. I wish I could say it went that smoothly. It meant having to lift each side of the deck probably 10 or 12 times while I got those deck blocks perfectly level with the old ones. A process which I started around 9 a.m. and finished close to noon, and which left me exhausted, but it was a good time to take lunch anyway. The next step, as you see here, was to get all the wood sorted. I have 2x4s and pressure-treated 2x4s. The pressure-treated ones will serve as the base of the observatory walls. And then, once I clear the truck out of the work area, I have to bring in a few of the cordless power tools to speed this work along. During the week, during some of the brief breaks in the rain, I did have a chance to dig in a couple of the power poles that I'm setting up. These are 10-foot or 3-meter tall fence posts that will be used to hold extension cord running from the cottage all the way out to the observatory high and dry off the ground. And the closest post will also hold one of the Wi-Fi expanders, giving it a good line of sight to my lab in the cottage, where the receiver can pick it up. Now this is going to be a micro-observatory, with the walls 64 inches long and 57 inches high. The size was carefully chosen to keep the weight down, yet have the walls high enough to block the wind that might otherwise impact the pier and the mount. And in later stages of building the observatory, I'm going to build several retractable windbreaks. Night breezes of 5 to 10 knots are pretty common here. And while they don't pose too much of a problem for the 81mm refractor, when I put a larger telescope on that mount, I don't want that telescope acting like a sail. I'm going to cut the wind before it becomes a problem. Now begins the cutting process. I'm going to need nearly 20 2x4s for struts cut down to 53 inches, 4 pieces cut down to 64 inches, and 4 more pieces cut down to 59 inches for those wall frames. For this kind of work, I prefer a miter saw. I mean, you can do that kind of work just as well with something like a circular saw, but a miter saw just makes it that much easier to make sure that every cut is perfectly square and level. I'm using a cordless miter saw that I picked up for the job, and I have to say I like it. It's a lot quieter than my old corded miter saw, and a heck of a lot more convenient when working 100 meters from the cottage and the nearest plug. It doesn't even seem to disturb my dog Gilly Doo or the horse out grazing peacefully there in the meadow. Once all the pieces were cut, the work went quickly. The long parts of the wall that would get east and west placement went really quickly, and was just a matter of 5 struts in the upper and lower beams. Every piece of the observatory is screwed together for additional strength, and each segment of the wall is set aside for later assembly. Later they'll become a lot stronger when the sheathing, LP Smart Side, is screwed to them over a layer of Tyvek house wrap to help control the effects of moving air. The next part is the north wall, a short wall, and then the south wall, where the door to the micro-observatory will be. But I looked up in the course of working on it to become frustrated when I realized I was now racing against time. There's a massive thunderstorm rolling in. In fact, at about that point I only had 5 minutes left. I had just enough time to finish cutting the top board and then scramble to get all the power tools and the mounts under cover. I am really looking forward to when I have the roof over this observatory and can continue working out there regardless of the weather. I had really hoped by the completion of today's video to have those walls up, but it started raining and the rain is supposed to hold out for about a week, so the walls won't actually be up for another week. Though with the frames built, it's just a matter of fixing the smart wrap and the LP Smart siding. Then we make and add a door, And from that point, we begin the most complicated part of this task, building the split V-roof that'll make this outdoor shed an observatory. If you want to see the plans, here they are.